All right, well, let's get started. I think a couple of folks are still coming into this webinar, but we'll let them come in and they'll pick up where we are at. So this is a quick 30-minute coffee break webinar where we're going to go really fast and hopefully accomplish a lot. And we're not going to spend too much time on any slide. And with no further ado, let's get going. So first of all, a quick introduction. And we're going to, in that introduction, define performance management, because this is about ongoing continuous performance management. So performance management heavily depends on setting objectives, which you can see over here, goals. Performance management is a set of activities which ensure that goals are consistently being met in an effective and efficient manner. Can't have performance management without first establishing clear objectives. So that's very important to remember as we talk about the tips on how to execute performance management effectively in a modern manner, and in an ongoing continuous manner. And then if you look at a Deloitte Burson definition of performance management, again, it also starts with establish measurable goals and objectives for employees. Again, that is the tip of the spear. And I really wanted to define that because I think a lot of folks are not always very clear about the fundamental, real hard definition of what performance management really truly is. Sometimes they think and confuse it with just an annual performance review, which it is not. And an annual performance review meeting is just one of series of steps and sequences in doing performance management correctly. So why is performance management important? Let's also define that. Well, the process defines and communicates your culture, your expectations of people, and how managers behave with your employees. Here are the challenges you face. And by the way, this is a coffee break webinar, so we're hoping you're all having some coffee and not getting too much caffeine from this webinar alone, because I do want to move really, really, really fast here. And so am I here, and I'm having some really nice Starbucks. So look, managers are uncomfortable communicating with employees. So that is one of the challenges, because if there's no defined performance management process, then your managers are definitely not, according to this self-admitted survey, or although anonymous, from Harvard, they're not really communicating a whole lot with their direct reports. They're not giving a lot of feedback over here. They're uncomfortable doing that. Can be very good, and employees are in turn surveyed, and they say, look, we're not really getting clear direction, not getting a lot of feedback from our managers. We're not even getting a lot of achievement recognition, which, by the way, is part of performance management. It's not all about the things that employees have to correct. Laszlo Bock, who ran people operations at Google and is well known in the world of HR, he said performance management is practiced by most organizations, has become a rule-based bureaucratic process existing as an end in itself rather than actually shaping performance, which it really should, right? Employees hate it, managers hate it, even HR departments hate it. Deloitte Burson says that only 12% of companies believe their existing performance management is worth their time. 12%, so out of 100 companies, only 12 think it's worth the time. That's seriously broken. And 58% of executives believe their current performance management drives neither employee engagement nor high performance. Then there's a ton of statistics, and I said I'm going to go really fast, but there's huge dissatisfaction with companies' performance review, huge frustration, even from HR professionals who don't feel that the performance management process currently doesn't even provide accurate information. That's horrible. There's a ton more data all over the place about how employees don't feel it's relevant to their jobs, and it's actually interfering with their productivity. 66% of employees say performance review process is interfering with their productivity. That is just horrible. How can that be, and companies are still doing performance management the old way? Mercer said only 3% of organizations say that their performance management system delivers exceptional value. That means 97 out of 100 HR executives and senior executives altogether in companies actually think that their systems for performance management are not even delivering exceptional value at all. That is really, 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 really bad stuff. Harvard Business Review, Reinventing Performance Management, talked about the following. They said that at Deloitte, there was a quote in this Harvard Business Review article, we tallied the number of hours the organization spent, and it consumed close to 2 million hours a year. 2 million hours a year at Deloitte. That's a little bit expensive, right, to do something as basic as performance management. And there's this whole discussion about performance management revolution. And here in Washington Post, the corporate kabuki of performance reviews, I think kabuki means some kind of a drama dance play or something like that. And this whole drama of performance reviews, among the hundreds of reasons to hate performance reviews, here's another. They dull certain parts of our brains. That is just amazing, right? It's an article in not some random blog. It's Washington Post wrote about this. They also talked about how their design is though they're Russia in the 60s. You couldn't give a you couldn't give them a word description than saying Russia in the 60s. They're totally out of date. So why then, pray tell, do we still do performance reviews here? In the last bullet point, corporate executive board found that performance reviews get pretty bad reviews themselves. They're wildly inaccurate and ineffective. Nobody likes them, nobody wants them, nobody believes in their effectiveness, and really it's high time to change them. There's a push against performance reviews in the New Yorker. Washington Post says that why must we continue to have these awkward conversations, which is really performance reviews once a year is really considered performance management, like we said earlier, the misalignment of the definitions, in which both sides try to recall something that they've accomplished 12 months ago. Crazy. General Electric, GE's head of HR, said the world isn't really on an annual cycle anymore for anything. Okay, so there are books about how performance management and performance reviews are completely done and over and dead, and let's move on and do something better. They purport to be objective, but they're not. For many people, the whole idea of not doing performance reviews and the old school performance management is almost seen as irresponsible, right? It's like that's why we're doing it, because it seems like it would be irresponsible not to, which is completely wrong. I wrote this book because so many managers and employees told me that they dread the performance review and thought it is a waste of time. Absolutely. So just another book saying the same thing. The stuff just doesn't work. It's time to kill these. Legacy performance process just doesn't work. Too complicated, too rigid, too many critical biases that are stacked up against employees that are not helping the company. They're frustrating for everyone, HR included, for managers, for executives, for employees. They do not improve performance, right? That is like the worst of all. They don't focus on developing your people. And your people cost your company 70% of the profit, right? On your P&L, on your income statement, 70% is your people, okay? And we just heard that everything done in performance management and performance once a year performance reviews today is actually doing the opposite of making this 70% worthwhile, right? Pretty bad. So is there a better way? And by the way, like I said, this is a 30-minute quick coffee webinar. We have 20 minutes left. We just went through a third of it, and there's a ton more to talk about. And let me have a sip of my coffee. Love it. All right, well, let's go. Is there a better way? Well, why is this really occurring before I give you this better way, right? Like 3 big drivers from Deloitte. The existing process is too complex. Most managers believe it is not worth the time they put into it. That's number 1. Number 2 is the process is not even developmental. It doesn't develop anyone. You're trying to develop people. HR is here to help people be developed, right? From managers developing their managerial skill sets to people being developed in better employees. And this process is killing all of that. It's just killing it, right? Look at some of these books I gave you, right? They talk about that in greater detail than the Harvard articles that I showed you, right? And then a major shift is taking place in management thinking, something that takes place only every few decades. And this is what we're here to talk about. This once in a few decades critical shift in management thinking. First, let me talk about what we feel is the hottest and most disruptive area of HR, the redesign of performance management. We are right now talking about the hottest and most disruptive area of HR. This is coming from Burson by Deloitte, which is the leading analyst and consulting and thought leader company on this topic. More than 60% of all companies are redesigning their performance management process, typically moving from top-down rating and ranking to a feedback-centric developmental model, right? Forrester, going forward, we believe employee performance will be transformed to deliver results using continuous methods. And of course, advanced technologies. You can't really do this effectively without advanced technologies. By the way, folks, I see a couple of folks joined us. Obviously, after a third of this webinar is completed, this is only 30-minute action-packed coffee break webinar. You've missed a ton, but you can always email us and we can tell you more about it. But let's keep going. Let's keep going. What does continuous even mean? What the heck is continuous, right? Performance reviews are once a year. No. That's why we talked about in the first part all these statistics, all this data from Harvard, from Corporate Executive Board, from Mercer. They're talking about how everybody hates it and this once a year thing is absolutely killing your employee productivity in your company, and you should kill it so that it doesn't destroy you, right? Ongoing activities are different. They're focused on talent development and improving employees' performance, not just assessing it or reviewing it. It's agile. And remember the very first few slides in this first part of this coffee break webinar, we talked about what exactly is the definition of performance management, right? Everybody's defining it all incorrectly. Well, it's right there in Wikipedia, right? You start with setting objectives first, critical. If you're not doing objectives first, that ain't performance management. It's not. Wikipedia tells you that is the tip of the spear, right? But it's also managing and coaching, development planning, and rewarding and recognizing your employees, right? Ongoing continuous focus. That's what modern performance management is all about. So check-ins is the word you probably have all heard. This is the magical phrase, check-ins, right? This is where, and this is from a slide from also from Deloitte, which specialized, Burson Group specializing on this topic area. It's about setting expectations through goals. It's about giving continuous ongoing feedback and getting outcome and growth out of that, right? Performance development from your employees. And feedback only with respect to objectives, only with respect to progress made on objectives, not in ether, not vacuous feedback, not with respect to nothing, right? With respect to people having clear objectives towards which they're executing, right? Very important stuff. And by the way, what the heck is this check-in, right? Well, check-in doesn't mean ongoing in a sense that like every 5 minutes the manager comes in and gives you feedback. No, that's stupid, okay? It's not like 5 times a week, right? No, this is a feedback and it's ongoing and it's a check-in on your progress towards your goals. That shouldn't really happen much more than just for 5 to 10 minutes a week, right? Remember that old model where HR has espoused and embraced the concept of managers doing their job effectively, which includes meeting with their direct reports one-on-one or having a phone call with folks if they're remote, but having an in-person connection to discuss projects, to discuss progress towards objectives once a week, right? You have to do it once a week, even if it's 10 minutes, right? Short, right? So that's really critical. And today, the check-in is enabled by technology. So this was made really famous by Adobe, and I'm going to talk about that in a minute. We're going to study that really quickly. But GE said here, we're moving towards continuous touch points. This is the, a globally renowned company that was all about annual performance reviews and stack rankings that Jack Welch implemented, decades ago. But they are getting rid of it and they're transitioning to continuous touch points. And again, this continuous touch points must not be misinterpreted with being bugged every 5 minutes by your manager or them, micromanaging you, 5 times a week, once a day. No. In fact, it's supposed to displace micromanagement by enabling this check-in during which you summarize progress towards objectives, not tell people how to do their activities and tasks and their jobs. Totally different. 5 to 10 minutes a week checking in on the progress on your 3 to 5 key quarterly objectives, giving people feedback, not like useless feedback, but feedback specifically and objectively connected to the progress on those objectives. Again, not vacuous sort of feedback in vacuum, not BS, right? But real definitive coaching and feedback on how people can make progress, where they can course correct, fill in the blanks, maybe help them connect with others on the team where there's conditional contingency, right, on a project, etc. That's what this is all about, right? Objective, not subjective management of people. Adobe check-ins, right? This is the case study that everybody's talking about. Adobe basically changed the world by coming out publicly and saying, look, we killed our performance review. In fact, so the senior VP of people, Donna Morris, she initially joined Adobe just as a senior director of global talent management. And then she knows that annual performance reviews were dead. They were killing the company. They were such a central part of the human resources job that she'd been hired to do. But it wasn't much of a resource to the humans it served. I'm literally reading verbatim, right? She said at one point the planning alone took 9 months. That is ridiculous. But she changed all of that. She killed that stupid process and enabled something that propelled her to the top to become promoted to the senior vice president because it was so disruptive in a positive way. It cut costs so significantly, right? It actually helped people get developed. And Donna Morris talks about employees hated these things and they weren't very useful. So that's why they changed them. Adobe calculated that the annual process required 80,000 hours from 2,000 managers, the equivalent of 40 full-time staff per year. Crazy. So they swapped out this old process and replaced it with regular check-ins, and it worked magic. It really worked magic. So in a Forbes article, Josh Burson here talks about that this feedback, not this annoying, multiple times a day. That's not what this is all about at all. The feedback is the check-in where the employee checks in with the manager through technology, gives an update on their objectives, fills in the blank of any bottlenecks or obstacles that they need help with, and the manager carefully reviews it and provides feedback, not like, hey, good job, but literally objective, informational, managerial, effective concepts for where they can help the employee make progress forward for quarterly objectives. The traditional outdated approach of performance management was annual reviews, annual goals, and compensation. It was all meshed in, mixed in together, all collapsed together into one. The modern way is, number one, set agile goals, meaning they're quarterly, not once a year, and you can report on them and check in on them in real time. Quarterly, mid-year, and annual meetings, but not just once a year, right? And you take compensation separately. You don't tie it 100% to the objective achievement or attainment. It's actually taken into account, but not as holistic, not 100%. So tons of other statistics, and of course, like I said, it's a 30-minute action-packed webinar. We're not going to read verbatim word for word here, but a ton of people did say that their managers spend too little time with them in ongoing conversations about progress and performance. Employees say that managers spend insufficient time helping them set objectives. Many employees, 2/3 said that their managers spend 4 hours per year on performance management. What we're talking about 5 to 10 minutes per week, right? That adds up really well, but effectively. Google came out and said that the way they're doing performance management is starting with goals, and they use the OKR methodology, which is the modern equivalent of setting objectives. It's just a 3-letter word. Consider OKR simply as modern agile goals, right? Objectives and key results. Then how do you do it? 8 quick steps, right? And we only have here what? 9 minutes left, and we're going fast. So number one, set goals. Remember the definition in the beginning. You can't have performance management without the tip of the spear, which is setting objectives. How can you manage someone if they don't know what their objectives are? It's just silly at best, right? If you're not doing it, you're not doing performance management. 2, it has to be measurable, right? Use data-driven approach to setting these either OKRs, objectives, and key results, which is really what everybody today is using, everybody, right? Millions of companies globally are starting to use OKRs as the right system to go. And but any goals, right? I mean, they're all one and the same for the most part. Furthermore, managers and employees need to do regular check-ins enabled by technology, as Forrester said, advanced technologies. But it's really very simple, right? You don't actually necessarily have to have our product from A-Team Software, but you can have any product out there that enables this check-in that's objective, that's measurable, has goals. You can actually see dashboards and understand where people stand, and the manager can actually comment on that and provide private confidential feedback. It has to be ongoing, continuous, and two-way so the employee can respond back. That's critical, right? And do not do this by email. Email is not a way to manage people, okay? Not a way to manage companies, not a way to manage people. If we only needed email, we wouldn't have anything else. We wouldn't need Excel spreadsheets or PowerPoints or even phones, right? There's a reason all these other channels of communication exist, and there's a reason people work in the office to see each other, right? Otherwise, we would just be managing each other by email. It would be just awkward, and it would absolutely kill progress. It must be local, meaning very specifically, the managers and employees have to drive the process with the HR team strategically implementing and supporting this process and training and teaching others that how it's supposed to work, but not necessarily telling everybody it's coming out of HR and must be done only by HR, right? Because this modern model, HR definitely is much more focused on enabling the more formal quarterly, semi-annual, or annual sit-downs, but the light check-ins that are happening just for 5 to 10 minutes a week, they must be driven locally by manager and employees. Otherwise, they won't happen. Goals to improve performance, not for compensation exclusively. Strength-based development, meaning it's not just like, hey, you failed on this project, right? And recognition. Good coffee, good coffee. All right, so keep going. Really quickly, research has linked agile goals, ongoing feedback with higher employee engagement, increased performance, and better corporate results. And Harvard Business Review published that majority of employees don't even understand their company's goals at all. The 5% are executives, right? If your employees don't have these objectives, you can't feedback them on anything. This data from Gallup shows that combining objectives or goals with employee two-way closed loop feedback, meaning it's two-way, but with manager to employee, and the employee can feedback back to the manager about their progress. It's not just like one-way employee being told. You basically have far higher employee engagement and performance. Real data. So Donna Morris, we talked about Adobe a couple of minutes ago. She said continuous feedback is difficult to sustain if it's not happening organically, right? That's the local part I talked about a minute ago. It's not just like HR needs to prompt people go do it. It has to be a technology that makes it engaging for managers and employees. This is actually not to talk about us, but how we've built our product in a way based on a ton of feedback over the years of how managers and employees want to work together so that the technology thus enables them to be engaged in it, not just being told and prompted to go do it. They will want to do it, right? Because they get value add from it. It's designed for that specific user experience, and it's certainly beyond this coffee break webinar to discuss that, but there's a ton of research and millions of dollars that goes into that to make it just right. You know, no different than a Hollywood movie to make it engaging and interesting for people to want to watch it instead of being told to go see a movie, right? Very simple stuff. This is just going to skip these slides. This is kind of our technology that allows you to do exactly that. It's called the Pulse. It's exactly that check-in. You come in, you're asked a couple of questions during the week. Your manager gets to see what your responses are. They're going to feedback you. You're going to feedback the manager on it. And then what I didn't show you is the goals, the metrics that are at the top of this report that you can include and should include, of course, for performance management in order for your employees to understand what they're being feedbacked on in terms of the progress. By the way, quick few things that I think everybody's always interested in. So Medtronic did this. And the head of HR at Medtronic said, so far, fears that changes like this, meaning killing the annual performance review, would lead our managers to not making tough calls about terminating people have gone unfounded, right? A lot of HR executives think, well, geez, if we kill this like system that we have been doing for decades, it's going to like hurt everything, right? The managers are not going to be able to make tough calls. That's total BS, right? Like she said, it's completely like it's just a made up nightmare that never even happens, right? It's just completely made up. In fact, it's been nothing but really good. But she was joking around that when she talks to other HR executives and peers, when she goes out with them for coffee, she or other beverages, she says that no one seems ready to follow suit. Of course, this was 4 years ago. I think a ton more companies are. But still, there are some that are worried. And she goes, this is one of those sacred cows. The typical performance review system doesn't work because you're demotivating half of your population, poking them in the eye with a sharp stick. So kill it. Be done with it. There's a ton of information out there that says just get into these check-ins, and all you really need to do at the end of the day is just get the technology. Like our product is out there if you're interested, or there are tons of other opportunities out there in the market. The technology will enable this. You go through onboarding, training, like we do that for our customers to show them how to use it, and bingo, you're done. It's really easy. You can get started with it in a couple of days, and it makes it happen. And the CEOs and the executives of companies love it, right? They go to HR and saying, great job. Finally, it's about time. Thank you for bringing this system or process, even a methodology, to the company, because now employees are much more developed. The managers are much more effective in their job, right? They're much more effective in their job to manage people through check-ins instead of waiting for this once a year performance review. This is the big new thing. It's a tsunami. It's happening not just in the US, it's global, right? We actually have customers in Asia, in Europe, in Australia. Everybody is doing this now. It's really simple, actually far simpler than the old school legacy, outdated performance management process and once a year performance review. So with that, this is basically it. I'm just showing you a bunch of companies globally that are doing this now. You know, of course, Adobe, right? Amazon, Goldman Sachs, they were just in the Wall Street Journal a week ago about how they are transitioning away from just once a year performance review to this feedback and check-in process. And this is a global phenomena across all different industries. Be ahead of the game. And by the way, it's already not ahead. It's been a thing for the past 3 years. GE has already completed it, right? So with that said, this is it. If you have any questions, please email us. We're happy to point you to more thought leadership content on how it's done. Happy to answer your questions. If you're also interested, and you don't have to, this is not a sales pitch, but check out our product, free trial. We can actually show you how the technology works. It's a lot of fun, so you actually have more context about how it actually happens in the real world, technologically enabled, for whenever you're ready to go forward with something like that. Thank you all so much. Hope you enjoyed the coffee break webinar. Hope your coffee was as good as mine. And I look forward to speaking with you all soon again on another webinar from us. Take care, happy Friday, and have a great weekend. Bye-bye.